They were America's perfect family smiling faces on a hit reality TV show, a picture of love and unity. But behind the cameras, a sinister truth was unfolding. When viewers noticed disturbing clues, it triggered an online investigation that exposed a horrifying secret. The beloved older brother had manipulated both of his younger sisters into silence and submission. What started as innocent entertainment became one of the darkest scandals reality television has ever faced. The Collins family was everything a producer could dream of: charming, wholesome, and perfectly camera-ready. Living in a cozy suburban town in Indiana, they were the centerpiece of a modest yet popular reality TV show called Living Together, which followed American families and their day-to-day experiences. Viewers instantly connected with them. Gerald, the father, was a mild-mannered high school history teacher. Linda, the mother, a soft-spoken woman who baked cookies for church events. Their 3 children completed the picture: Ethan, the 22-year-old son recently back from college, and his 2 younger sisters, Melanie, 17, and Harper, 15. Their house was warm, their smiles genuine, or so it seemed. On camera, the Collins family looked like they belonged in a magazine ad. They went to Sunday services together, had backyard barbecues, and laughed over board games at the dinner table. The show's editors often featured touching moments between the siblings: Ethan helping his sisters with homework, braiding Harper's hair, surprising Melanie with a custom-painted skateboard. Fans adored him. They called him the perfect Big Brother. Hashtags with his name trended weekly. Everyone wanted a family like the Collins, but not everything was as simple as it appeared. The production crew occasionally noticed things they couldn't quite explain. Unscripted moments where the girls looked uneasy or flinched when Ethan entered the room. One camera operator once caught Harper wiping tears away when she thought no one was filming. The director chalked it up to stress from filming and tight schedules. Besides, nothing could taint such a perfect family, right? As the show continued into its 3rd season, producers started diving deeper into the family dynamic for higher ratings. They encouraged more behind-the-scenes footage and candid moments. One episode featured the family spending an entire weekend without electronics, just bonding. It was during this shoot that a strange incident occurred. Ethan and Melanie were caught in the background of a scene, far from the main camera. He was brushing her hair in the living room, a seemingly innocent act, but something about it felt too intimate. His hand lingered a second too long. His eyes didn't just look caring, they looked possessive. When that episode aired, it sparked something in the audience. A few online users mentioned how odd Ethan and Melanie seemed together. Others brushed it off as overthinking. But it was just the beginning. People began rewatching earlier episodes, analyzing Ethan's interactions with his sisters. Suddenly, moments that once seemed sweet now appeared unsettling. Like the time Harper was shown coming out of Ethan's room late at night, wearing his hoodie and holding a book. Or when Melanie sat too close to him during a game night, practically leaning into his shoulder. The comment section started filling with speculation. Even more disturbing were the fan accounts. Some users began creating compilation videos, piecing together every strange interaction between Ethan and his sisters. Theories exploded across forums and Reddit threads. Most viewers still couldn't believe anything sinister could exist within the Collins family. After all, they were America's sweethearts. The producers dismissed the noise. They believed it was just the nature of internet fandom. But behind the scenes, panic had already begun to spread. The camera operators reviewed raw footage, and things they had once ignored began to surface. Silent moments, uncomfortable glances, sudden mood shifts from the girls' clues that now screamed for attention. None of it, however, was concrete. No one had proof of anything. The family continued smiling for the cameras. Ethan remained charming, and his sisters stayed quiet. The illusion held strong. But the seed of doubt had been planted in the minds of the audience. And once planted, it only needed time and the right moment to grow into something much darker. And that moment was coming faster than anyone realized. The internet never forgets, and it never sleeps. After the suspicious clip aired, online investigators took over. It started with a few Reddit threads and YouTube reaction videos dissecting Ethan and Melanie's unusual interactions. But soon entire communities formed around the mystery. People combed through every episode of Living Together, freeze-framing scenes, zooming in on background actions, and compiling timelines of Ethan's behavior. A subreddit dedicated to the Collins family exploded overnight. What had once been a fan base turned into a digital investigation unit. Within days, an anonymous user claiming to be a former classmate of Ethan's posted a disturbing thread. They alleged Ethan had a strange obsession with his sisters even back in high school, frequently bringing up how close they were and even showing texts from Harper and Melanie that seemed more personal than typical sibling banter. Screenshots were shared, though the authenticity was questioned. Still, it added fuel to an already growing fire. Soon after, another anonymous post appeared, this time from someone claiming to be a production assistant on Living Together. They described Ethan as controlling, recounting an instance where he insisted on approving footage that included his sisters. According to the post, Ethan had threatened to pull out of filming entirely if certain clips weren't removed. The assistant also claimed that Melanie once had a panic attack during filming, and production halted for nearly an hour before she returned on camera with a blank smile. The producers, chasing ratings, allegedly dismissed her reaction as teenage drama. Meanwhile, a now viral video compilation circulated on YouTube. It showed side-by-side footage of Ethan interacting with each sister across the seasons, holding hands too long, whispering during interviews, and unexplained tension when other people entered the room. One frame caught Harper wearing a bracelet that Ethan had previously said he made for Melanie. Another showed him rubbing Harper's back during a family trip as she sat stiff and silent. These were moments most viewers had ignored the first time. Now they looked like evidence. The pressure mounted on the production company. A petition demanding the show be suspended gained over 100,000 signatures in a week. Sponsors began pulling their support. Then, a private video leaked from an unaired episode, a raw, unedited interview segment meant for the season finale. In it, Harper is asked what she admires most about her brother. She looks down, silent for a few seconds, then mutters, "He told me not to talk about it." The crew shifts awkwardly. Someone off camera tries to change the subject, and the clip cuts out. This clip changed everything. News outlets picked up the story. National headlines read, "America's Favorite. Family Hiding Dark Secret." The Collins house, once admired, now drew reporters and protesters. The show was pulled from airing indefinitely. Ethan deleted his social media accounts. Melanie and Harper were removed from school for their safety, according to officials. Local authorities, reluctant at first, could no longer avoid the noise. They quietly opened a case, starting with interviews and requests for behind-the-scenes footage. The production company, now under immense public scrutiny, cooperated just enough to keep lawsuits at bay. What they handed over wasn't damning, but it wasn't clean either. For the first time, law enforcement had reason to believe that something far more sinister than internet speculation was taking place in the Collins household. They began seeking warrants, focusing on Ethan's digital footprint and family history. What had started as a fan theory was now a full-blown investigation. And beneath the media frenzy and online outrage, two sisters remained silent, still unseen, still unheard. But for the first time, the world had started to look closer. The curtain that once protected the Collins family's perfect image had been pulled back. And what lay behind it was no longer just a suspicion. It was a warning. When the police finally executed a search warrant at the Collins residence, they were not sure what to expect. The town was quiet that morning. But the investigators knew the calm was only surface deep. They moved quickly and carefully, entering the familiar two-story home that had once charmed millions of viewers. What they found inside would begin to unravel the twisted truth hidden beneath the family's glossy exterior. In Ethan's room, detectives found several locked drawers. After obtaining the keys from Gerald, Ethan's father, they opened them to reveal external hard drives, journals, and flash drives labeled with coded initials. It didn't take long for forensic specialists to dig into the devices, and what they uncovered confirmed the darkest fears. The files contained private messages between Ethan and his sisters, over 2 years' worth. Many of them included manipulative language, strange promises, and disturbing implications that blurred the lines of normal sibling relationships. Even more troubling were the images. Some appeared innocent at first, photos from family vacations or birthdays, but with closer examination, the patterns became clear. The photos were cropped in specific ways, with a focus on the girls. There were hundreds of them. Investigators also found a hidden folder in Ethan's laptop, buried under layers of encryption. It contained videos, many of them shaky and low quality, captured late at night in dimly lit rooms. These weren't part of the show. They were home videos taken without consent. Some showed Harper sleeping. Others showed Melanie crying alone in her room. The footage wasn't graphic in a traditional sense, but the emotional invasion was undeniable. It painted a picture of a young man who had complete control over his younger siblings and took steps to document his influence. Both girls were removed from the home that day. Authorities interviewed Melanie first. She was nervous, but once the evidence was laid before her, she broke down. Between sobs, she revealed that Ethan had started manipulating her when she was just 14. He told her she was special, that their bond was above ordinary siblings. He convinced her that this kind of relationship was normal, as long as no one found out. Over time, Melanie grew isolated, her self-esteem shattered. She believed she was in love with her brother. She believed what they were doing was a secret between two people who understood each other better than anyone else could. Harper's story was even more heartbreaking. At only 15, she had been pulled into the same web a year after Ethan returned from college. By then, he was more confident, more controlling. He used Melanie's involvement as proof that what he was doing was acceptable. Harper admitted to feeling confused, scared, and helpless. She said she wanted to tell someone but feared the family would be torn apart, and she would be blamed for everything. Linda and Gerald claimed ignorance. Gerald insisted he had never seen anything inappropriate. Linda, however, broke under pressure. She admitted that she had once walked in on Ethan, comforting Melanie in a way that felt off. She asked him about it, but he dismissed her with tears and a story about Melanie's nightmares. She chose to believe him, telling herself it was all innocent. She wanted to protect the family's reputation. That silence, investigators noted, had cost them dearly. Ethan was arrested that evening, charged with multiple counts of coercion, exploitation, and emotional abuse. He remained calm as he was led away in handcuffs. No remorse, no denial. Just a blank stare, as if none of it mattered. The town watched in stunned silence as their golden boy was taken away. The story had shifted from speculation to undeniable truth. The evidence was overwhelming, the silence finally broken. And yet, the darkest parts were still to come. Because what Ethan did wasn't only about control. It was about something deeper, something that had been growing unchecked within the walls of the Collins home for far too long. As the investigation deepened, more unsettling truths came to light, peeling back the layers of a carefully orchestrated illusion. Ethan Collins wasn't just a manipulative older brother, he was a calculated predator. Records from his time in college revealed that he had been investigated for stalking a female classmate during his sophomore year. The case had been quietly dropped after the girl transferred to another university and refused to testify. Ethan's parents had stepped in, hired a private attorney, and ensured the incident never made it to the school's official disciplinary record. It was swept away like dust under a rug. Back in their hometown, Ethan's return from college had been seen as a blessing. He was praised as the older brother who came home to help raise his sisters, a role he embraced both publicly and privately. But in reality, he returned not to guide them, but to isolate and control them. He carefully monitored their phone usage, discouraged them from having friends outside the family, and created a dependency so subtle that even the girls didn't recognize it until it was too late. He convinced them that no one outside the family would ever understand them the way he did, that their bond was unique, and that the world wouldn't accept their connection. As the media frenzy exploded, the producers of Living Together found themselves at the center of public outrage. Former crew members came forward anonymously, admitting that they had felt uncomfortable on set at times, but were instructed to ignore personal family matters and focus on what was good for the story. One sound technician revealed that during off-camera breaks, Melanie often appeared emotionally distant, and Harper frequently stayed silent. A makeup artist recalled Harper once trembling before a family interview, her hands shaking as Ethan stood behind her, whispering something she couldn't hear. The show's management denied knowledge of any wrongdoing, but emails later leaked showed that some producers had raised concerns internally about the siblings' closeness. Those concerns were dismissed by higher-ups, who worried that questioning the family's dynamic would lead to conflict, lost footage, and most importantly, lost viewers. Ratings had doubled since Ethan's return home. The Collins family was profitable. Psychological experts who reviewed the case pointed to a textbook pattern of grooming. Ethan had weaponized his position of authority as the eldest sibling. He created an environment where Melanie and Harper not only trusted him, but feared the loss of his approval. He presented himself as their protector from a harsh outside world, then used that loyalty against them. It wasn't just abuse, it was indoctrination. Over time, the girls stopped seeing him as a brother and started seeing him as the only person who truly cared for them. Linda Collins, once the image of the nurturing mother, came under increasing scrutiny. Investigators found a journal entry in Melanie's diary dated over a year before the arrest. In it, she mentioned how her mother had walked in on her sitting on Ethan's lap. She wrote, "Mom just stared for a second. Then she smiled and walked away." Though Linda denied ever seeing anything, that small paragraph suggested either denial or complicity. Whether it was ignorance, fear, or an unwillingness to believe, her silence had played a part in keeping Ethan's secret alive. Gerald, too, wasn't completely without fault. His disciplinary tone with the girls had faded over the years, and he left most parenting decisions to Ethan. When asked why, he simply said, Ethan was the responsible one. He had relinquished authority to the very person who was causing the most harm. With the trial approaching, the true scale of Ethan's manipulation was finally becoming clear. It wasn't a moment of weakness or a lapse in judgment. It was years of psychological control, deception, and emotional warfare waged behind the closed doors of a home millions once admired. And the most chilling part was how easily it had all blended into the performance of everyday family life, unnoticed by almost everyone until it was far too late. Ethan Collins stood silently as the courtroom buzzed with reporters, spectators, and flashing cameras. His once celebrated image as a caring older brother was now shattered beyond repair. Charged with multiple counts of coercion, emotional manipulation, and sexual misconduct involving both of his underage sisters, Ethan showed no emotion throughout the proceedings. He did not cry. He did not apologize. He simply stared ahead, as if detached from the chaos unfolding around him. The prosecution built a solid case backed by digital evidence, video files, journal entries, and psychological assessments. But the most powerful testimony came from Melanie and Harper themselves. Their statements were read aloud by a court advocate, sparing them the trauma of appearing in person. In their words, the years of fear, confusion, and misplaced loyalty came to light. They described how Ethan had isolated them, redefined their reality, and silenced their instincts. What made their stories most tragic was the deep love they once felt for their brother, love that he twisted into a tool for control. The judge called the case one of the most disturbing abuses of familial trust he had ever witnessed. Ethan was sentenced to 35 years in prison with no chance of parole. His reaction was a blank stare, as if he had already left the room in his mind. For the town that once adored him, the trial was a painful reckoning. Neighbors who had once spoken proudly of the Collins family now admitted they had seen strange behavior but chose not to interfere. Teachers recalled Melanie's withdrawal from school activities, Harper's sudden mood swings, and both girls' growing silence. They all looked back and saw missed signs, warnings that had gone ignored. The aftermath was chaotic for everyone involved. The television network that aired Living Together issued a public apology and pulled every episode from streaming platforms. They faced multiple lawsuits from advocacy groups who argued that the show's lack of oversight had enabled the abuse to go unchecked. Several producers and crew members lost their jobs. The scandal triggered a larger debate about reality TV ethics, privacy, and the dangers of exploiting families for entertainment without appropriate psychological monitoring. Linda and Gerald Collins disappeared from the public eye. Their house, once a symbol of unity, was eventually sold under financial strain and became a magnet for curiosity seekers. Online forums speculated endlessly about whether the parents had known more than they admitted. Some believed Linda was in denial, while others accused her of quietly supporting Ethan to avoid scandal. Gerald, always passive, was seen by many as a father who had surrendered his role long before the crimes came to light. They were never formally charged, but their names remained forever linked to one of the most twisted cases of hidden abuse in modern memory. Melanie and Harper entered a long-term trauma recovery program funded by victims.